Yes, my name is Raymond Tyler from Real Black TV. A pleasure and an honor to meet you.
Thank you.
I have two questions. One is, could you talk to us a little bit about being the first person to be involved with an interracial kiss on national TV? And two, did you make a conscious effort to avoid the Blaxploitation era?
I made a conscious effort to jump in at feet first because we did not at that time refer to it or even think of it as black exploitation. It was an opportunity for black writers, for black directors, for black stars, for black actors behind the scenes to get experience, to get known, and Gordon Parks had done The Learning Tree, and my son happened to play Gordon Parks, Newt, the star in that, Kyle Johnson. And I saw what could happen from there, and he was the one who really opened the door for black people to have an opportunity in filmdom, where it was going to be seen.
How have things changed since then?
Unfortunately, what the studios were very interested in which became black exploitation, was the seedier side. And no one saw it coming, what we were doing, because as actors, you're playing a role, not being yourself. You're playing a role. And before you knew it, that's all that was out there. So I did one film, Madam, and, but that was 40-some years ago, and I didn't play another one until now, and many other roles in between, but no more black exploitation films, because after that one, all I saw was the opportunity to show, women to take off their clothes, black men to leave their wives and have bastard children running around, to be dope artists and to demean the black race, and never seeing while that exists, never seeing the other side of us, of who we are. The diamond, faceted persons that we are, like anyone else, any other culture. And I resented it deeply, and so I turned down opportunities, and they wouldn't cast me in anything else. And so I went back to theater, my first love, until things started moving around. And then right after Star Trek, the conventions, Star Trek conventions, which were fan-produced and organized, came along. And there was one somewhere every weekend in the world. It spread like wildfire. And so we stayed in the public eye. And that took 10 years later to the 6 major motion pictures of Star Trek. And the other question you asked me was about the interracial kiss.
Yes.
We were always looking to the next script, because one was better than the other. What I was not looking to is great scenes being constantly cut in rewrites. And there was a reason for that, and for that reason I wasn't terribly thrilled. It was the end of the first season, and I went into Gene Roddenberry and told him that I was getting these offers since this was after the first season, and that I wanted to get back to my first love, which is musical theater and live theater. And he said, "You can't do that. Do you know what I'm trying to do? Don't you see?" And he said, "Wait a minute, this is Friday. Take the weekend and think about it." And the next night, on Saturday, I was a celebrity guest at I think it was an NAACP fundraiser, and I attended, and I'm at the dais, and people are coming in, And one of the producers or organizers of the event came to me and said, Miss Nichols, there's someone who really wants to meet you, is a big fan. And I said, oh, certainly. And I got up and turned around into the face of Dr. Martin Luther King. I could not breathe. I mean, you know that expression, waiting to exhale? And he smiled, and when he laughed, I think that's when I kind of began to exhale. And he said, I'm the fan, and my whole family is a fan of yours, and my little children. And then he says, and I want to congratulate you on the quality of your work and the quality of the character and so forth. And I said, well, thank you, Dr. King. I'm going to miss my co-workers. And he said, what you talking about? And I said, I'm leaving the show after the first season. And I told Gene Roddenberry. He says, you can't do that. You cannot, you cannot do that. And I wanted to say, what you talking about, Doctor? And he said, don't you understand what that man is doing? He's changed you. He's put you in the command crew. You're fourth in command. You can't abdicate this. You're out there on a 5-year mission where no man or woman has gone before. He says, you have changed the face of television forever. You cannot do that. For the first time, the whole world is seeing us as we should be seen, not just as beautiful entertainers and domestics, or domestics. He said, for the first time, there's a whole human being there, beyond the beauty, beyond the talent, the musical talent, in science, and it's not a mistake he made you chief communications officer. And I thought right then it used its sense. Yeah, I get to tell everybody where to go. You know? But I listened fascinated to him. And he said, do you know that how important this show is? This is the only television show that my wife Coretta and I allow our little children to stay up and watch. And he said, this is so important. I said, and this is right in the middle of the civil rights marches and programs. And I said, when it began, I really wanted, he says, no, we don't want you there. We have enough marchers. We have enough famous people. We need you on that great communicator. We need you on that screen. Because this is 300 years from now. That's telling the world it already is. We are there. What happened between now and then begins with our marches. What happens there is you. You cannot leave. I could not leave. And I went back to tell Gene Roddenberry, and I told him what Dr. King said. Gene Roddenberry is 6'3", hatchet-faced, big ex-cop, motorcycle cop, World War II fighter pilot. And he sat there at this desk, and he looked up at me, and he said, thank God for Dr. Martin Luther King. Somebody knows what I'm trying to achieve here. And a tear ran down his thing. I almost lost it. I said, thank you, Gene, and I got out of there. And he was a dear friend, and he saw to it from then on that less of my, and I never complained, that my scenes were protected more. And I'd like to say, before we go there, I did not leave, and I never looked back. I was very grateful for that opportunity. And when Dr. King's kids grew up, I got to meet all but one. and each one told me separately and equally. You know, we didn't believe our daddy when he came home. Remember that like this, and told us he met Lieutenant Uhura. I said, "Did you know who your father was?" He said, "Yeah, he was out getting beat up and telling people." And so I thought that, and then it, you know, it hits you again in retrospect, hearing them say that Dr. King was so far ahead of himself because he realized that images are so powerful, and the television is educational whether we like it or not. Hi, I'm Nichelle Nichols, and when I'm in this quadrant, I watch Real Black on Comcast. You should too.